I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York.
How are we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie, here with my guy, Mr. Idris Salam. Idris is having some issues with his mic, so hopefully we're able to get him in on the show. But if not, I'm going to do my best to run it solo. On today's show, we're going to talk about the Boston Red Sox and the Tampa Bay Rays sweeping the NYC teams, the Mets and the Yankees. Post-game, Rafael Devers traded to the San Francisco Giants. I'm going to ask a very important question. Is it a bad look and bad business for the Boston Red Sox? Also want to hit on the life and legacy of the legendary Tupac Shakur, who today would have been celebrating his 54th birthday. He was unfairly taken away from the world way back on a night in Vegas in 96, excuse me. We're also going to hit on the NBA Finals. Who's going to win tonight as a pivotal Game 5 is going down on the hardwood. OKC and Indy definitely, in my opinion, providing quite an entertaining series. We're going to start it here, ladies and gentlemen. Tupac Shakur, my all-time favorite rapper at the time of his death, and even this many years post death, still one of my all-time favorites. I want to speak on his legacy. One of the things that this guy did over the course of his career that resonated with so many people is that I really think that he tried his best to uplift his people. When you look at his activism, the way he was raised, being the son of a Black Panther, also being a very adaptable person because he constantly moved in part to his late mother's addiction to crack cocaine. A very talented person taken far too soon. He did it in a big way, scoring some massive roles in Hollywood, getting his foot on the ground, so to speak, in the cult classic Juice, later appearing in Above the Rim, which was a pretty awesome movie in its own right. Above the Rim, one of my all-time favorites as well. Gang related. Idris, you hear me, buddy?
Yes.
All right, very good, very good. I'm actually I'm in the process of hitting on the life and legacy of Tupac Shakur, who today would have been celebrating his 54th birthday. Kind of talking about the filmography.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question, Idris. What's your favorite Tupac movie?
Oh man. Woo. I like Gridlock with him and Tim Roth when they were both drug addicts.
Yeah.
Dang, that's hard, man. Woo. Dang. I gotta go with Gridlock, man. That was my it's between that and Juice. I'm gonna go Gridlock.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty close one between his first movie, Juice.
Yeah.
And one of his final movies, Gridlock. Gridlock came out after he passed away.
Yeah.
as did, I believe, Bullet.
Yeah.
That was the one with the dude from the boxer. His name slips my mind. Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke. Yeah. Kumo D was in it also.
Yes, he was. Kumo D, also a hip hop legend.
Yeah.
In that movie as well. Right before you were able to jump in, I was talking about his aspirations in things that were bigger than movies and music, talking about his activism.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tupac understood the struggles of so many on different platforms, different ways, different levels, because when you grow up in a community like the Black Panthers, it's not your typical father-son, in his case, a stepfather who had more of an influence.
Yeah.
Or even his own mother, the late Afeni Shakur. It's not the typical way to be raised. And while there is so much that he learned from that prepped him to be who he was, there was also some stuff that I thought was missing, because I always feel that Tupac, some people would call him a set jumper, things of that nature. I think that one of the biggest quandaries in Tupac's short life was that he was always looking for a family, so to speak.
Yeah, I agree.
And I believe that when you come from a situation where obviously a very strong Black woman who was able to beat the federal government in court while she was pregnant with him in prison, you know, there's no denying that he had a warrior spirit and a big strength and also an affection for the single mom, so to speak. I do believe that on some levels, not having the consistent father figure definitely was something that had him searching during the course of his 25 years on planet Earth for a father figure. The gentleman in the driver's seat here on that fateful night, Suge Knight, I think in some levels actually filled that void.
Yeah, I agree. It's sad because he filled that void, but it wound up being his demise. And I mean, you said it right. He was looking for like a family, and yeah, I mean, he kind of set jump. I'm not gonna say set jump because he kind of represented one side, even though he wasn't officially a gang member, nothing like that. I think he was a guy who I think he got with the wrong people. It's like with Mike Tyson when Customato died. I think he got with the wrong people. I could see where his heart was. He wanted to do activism. He wanted to act also. But I just think the wrong people like Suge Knight and those got around him. And I kind of think he was I don't want to say a lost soul because he knew where he wanted to go. I just think he had a lot of distractions around him that caused him to get into the situation he was in. That he ended up taking his life.
Yeah, I believe that he was very nomadic from an early age because it was kind of forced upon him when he had to leave Oakland. He was in Baltimore. He moved around an awful lot, New York. And when his mother struggled with the drug addiction, he was kind of passed along amongst his family, the more responsible family members at the time, while his mother worked on getting clean. His first album, Strictly for My Niggas, did not hit on the mainstream level.
That was the second one. First one was Tupacalypse Now.
Tupacalypse Now, thank you. And he didn't really hit the big time, oddly enough, until he was incarcerated.
Yeah.
Which was Me Against the World.
Yeah.
To this day, I would say tied for my top 2 Tupac albums, of course, with Machiavelli.
Yeah.
All Eyes on Me was a game changer, first double album in hip hop history. However, I feel that it was a little different because of the West Coast influence on the album, the producers.
Yeah.
Johnny J, Dr. Dre, to name a couple.
Yeah.
Quite a few R&B drop-ins and hooks from Danny Boy.
Yeah.
And basically a little bit of contribution from pretty much everyone on the Death Row roster at the time. Of course, you had a song with Method Man, which was track 4, side A.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Of course, the massive fallout, which was such a public situation with, at the time, in many people's estimation, the King of New York, the notorious B.I.G., someone who Tupac mentored. I think as more and more has come out, you can go back to the Simon Rex interview.
Mm-hmm.
You could even go back to the MTV Awards or just sporadically when he was making his appearances on MTV. I think that he was getting to a point where he realized how much damage the East and West rivalry was causing. And I think in his own way, he was trying to acknowledge that they needed to loosen it on both sides, but it was a little too late at that juncture.
Yeah.
Um, of course, the Keefe D case is going on. Of course, Sean Puffy Combs, Diddy, the Diddler, he's on trial. I personally believe, as I know that you do as well, we've spoken on it many a time, that P. Diddy more than had a hand in this man's demise on that night in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that situation is following the money and pinning it on Sean Combs. I think he has his share of stuff that will get pinned on him, but one of the worst kept secrets in hip hop, in my opinion, that Puffy definitely had a hand in that. And it's just an ugly side of the business. I personally believe that Christopher Wallace, his rap friend turned rival, also knew that it had gotten to that point that it was so blown out of proportion. And it was a little too late for both of them, unfortunately, because there were just too many hands in the pot, too many dangerous people that were involved on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a shame, and it goes back to the wrong influences because see, it's great because him and Biggie were real good friends, man. They could have been a great combo, like just like Meth and Redman,
Yeah.
But I said the people who got the gangsterism got involved. Suge, Diddy, and I agree. I think Diddy had a lot to do with Tupac getting killed. I think he had a lot to do with Biggie getting killed. And it's sad because those two guys could have carried hip hop into the 2000s like no other. But they were giants. They were heavyweight giants. I mean, I wasn't a big Tupac fan, but I liked them. Like my two favorite was probably Me Against the World and oh shoot, the one you mentioned at the top of the thing.
Machiavelli.
No, not Machiavelli. The other.
All Eyes on Me.
All Eyes on Me. Yeah, those would be my two favorite. And my favorite song is always the one he did with Scarface. But,
Smile.
Smile. I love that song. The words are so like
oddly enough was not on an actual Tupac album.
Right, it wasn't. It was on Scarface's album. Exactly, yeah.
Correct.
And the thing about it is when my son graduated from high school, they had a student that went up there to give a speech, and he gave the opening to Smile, what Tupac said. And the whole crowd, the auditorium erupted. And it was a white guy, young white guy, 17 years old.
Wow.
The place erupted. And I had tears in my eyes. He came off that stage. I gave that man a hug. I've never met him a day in my life. I said, man, you just did something to all of us.
Well, I think the thing that both Biggie and Tupac had,
mm-hmm.
I'll start with Tupac, is that so many people in various struggles felt him because
mm-hmm.
while people would say, oh, he wasn't really a gangster and he wasn't really this and he wasn't really that, one thing that he was a victim of poverty
mm-hmm.
and a victim of a broken family. And, I think the saddest part for most of this is that when he was finally riding the wave of success and being the number one rapper in the country, his family was starting to heal up and come together.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's probably the most tragic part of this. Of course, his cousin, Yaki Gaddafi, was killed not long after he was. There's always been multiple speculations on whether it was an accident, an in-house accident, whether it was somebody trying to shut him up.
Yeah.
He died in New Jersey. You never know for sure. As Big goes, you mentioned it, Diddy involved in both of these guys' demises. Nobody in their right mind, given the climate that time in hip-hop, would advise their main cash cow artist to make the trip to LA, avoid going to London, and only really link with him on the ultimate night of his demise. There were too many red flags. You got the think big stickers on the big wheels
Yeah.
of the vehicle that he was killed in. I think that was a way for the shooter to identify which car Puffy was not in.
Yeah.
Just too many moving parts that just stink all the way around. And while I always have questioned if Suge Knight himself had a hand in the demise of Biggie, I will say this: if he did, Sean Combs was more than a willing participant.
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree because for Biggie to say before he passed away, "I'm next. They're gonna get me next." He knew, and he's not just gonna say that out the blue. I mean, he knew. You're talking 6 months, 7 months after Tupac. I mean, he said it. I mean, I'm next.
One of the weirdest caveats of this saga is the day that Tupac actually was announced that he passed away, because he was in intensive care for the better part of a week.
Yeah.
Biggie and Little C's took out a pretty lemonish van.
Yeah.
Where Biggie just kind of wanted to get away from the spotlight. I think he was profoundly affected by the death of Tupac, regardless of what people will take away from some of his music.
Yeah.
Because Long Kiss would suggest differently.
Yeah.
But I think that's just one of those things where you're putting on a persona because you're in the heat of the battle, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
But having said that, that same day, to my understanding, Biggie had the car accident, which made him immobile and even an easier target that night at the Peterson.
Right.
He put on a morbid amount of weight during that leg injury because he was always a big dude. But prior to the car accident, he wasn't like morbidly obese.
Right.
He was just a big dude.
He's a big guy, yeah.
He was always a big guy. But if you look at the transformation for the worse of him physically, it was post-car accident. And it's sad all the way around. I watched so many videos with regard to all of this. The first shooting at Quad involving Tupac, I believe that Puffy more than knew what was going on. I think Biggie actually made a concerted effort to tell Tupac to stay away from the likes of Haitian Jack and Jimmy Henchman.
Yeah.
But, one of the things that got this young man in trouble too, he had a big mouth. No doubt about it. You even go back to the Orlando Anderson situation, the death row pendants, that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think Orlando Anderson is there by himself in a bright-ass Miami jersey to not get seen.
Right.
When you're in that life, you need a reason, similar to the mafia, to take somebody out. You need a reason.
Yeah.
And that was the reason when Tupac erroneously decided to knuckle up with a well-known Crip, when in reality, that's a situation for the goons of the rap label, not your cash cow.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I wasn't a big Tupac fan, but I mean, and I don't say that to say he was a less rapper. No, he wasn't. It's just at the time, how deep it was back then. The pool was deep of rappers, MCs.
Absolutely.
So like I said, he wasn't my favorite, but I liked him. I really liked him, and I would love to see him post rap career, like as an actor, as an activist, because I think he'd have been a great actor. The guy was good. He was good.
I think on that variable, you would have seen him in a lot more movies, similar to how, because a lot of people lose sight of this.
Yeah.
He's one of the first guys that really opened the lane for rappers in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You look at so many other rappers after him that have done it. Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, just to name a couple, Q-Tip.
Yeah.
I mean, Q-Tip had a small role in Poetic Justice. Another one of my favorites, by the way.
Right, he sure did.
But I believe that he would have been the kind of guy that he would have dropped an album maybe once every 10 years.
Like LL.
I also believe that Death Row East could have been, this might be a little bit far-reaching, but because Biggie wanted off of Bad Boy, I don't believe everything Suge Knight says, but one thing I do believe is when it comes to the music side of things.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. Suge recently said that he was in the room when Tupac and Biggie were on the phone. This was at the height of the beef,
Yeah.
where Biggie reemphasized to Tupac that he had nothing to do with that. And while Tupac was still angry, he kind of accepted Biggie's words for what it was. And Suge is in the other ear of Tupac saying, he ain't happy over there. We need to bring you guys together musically, maybe on our Death Row label.
Yeah.
And I do believe that when Death Row East was about to launch, and especially with the behind-the-scenes peacemaking that was attempted by Eric B. as well as Nas,
Yeah.
I think you were going to see a situation where Tupac was going to be linking with a lot of New York artists who were already established and guys who were on the way up.
Yeah.
And to be really frank with you, I think that the real beef may have very well been Sean Carter and Tupac at that point. Or maybe a guy like a Raekwon, guys that were like fighting for the crown.
Yeah, I can roll with that. Because he did some things with he did some things with Redman. He got the track of Redman. He got on the track with Method Man. And Method said after his death, how he said, man, me and Pac had some stuff, playing going forward. Which I would have loved to see. I would have loved to hear. And with him and Biggie, it's like I said, I think it was just the wrong people got involved in his life, man. Damn, because you think about he's one of those guys like what he could have been.
And then you revisit the Angie Martinez interview that has been so tightly held.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, guys, if we're going back to the 1990s, who were the two artists out of New York that ran Hot 97 behind the scenes and told people what was up? It was Jay-Z and it was Sean Combs.
Yep.
And you know damn well that when Tupac was spitting jewels that we're finding out now, all these years later, about the diddler.
Yep.
That interview was not to come out. And it's not Angie Martinez saying, oh, I didn't want to start a war and all this other bullshit. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't property of Angie Martinez. It was property of Hot 97.
Exactly. And
just as Big Gene had alluded to. And Sean Carter also had power because we remember the beef with Nas and Jay-Z where they were basically not playing Nas's shit on Hot 97.
And the thing about it, Nas even came out, I think about 2-3 months ago. He said he still don't like Jay-Z. He said he still don't mess with him. And see, that's the thing. Tupac made Hit 'Em Up, but he did Biggie, but he also did Jay. He let it be known. He said Jay-Z died slow. He went in on those who he felt was blacklisting them here on the East Coast, which was Jay-Z, which was Diddy. Though because they were the
and he also had no love for LL Cool J, but I think some of that had more to do with the woman in common, which was Kadada Jones, because she did date LL prior to Pac. And that's a whole nother thing, speaking on the women before we switch the topic, because I'm having a lot of fun on this one.
No doubt. Hey, when you're talking hip-hop, it's always fun.
Something that I find interesting.
Yeah.
Amidst all the stuff going on with Sean Combs. Do you notice how Faith Evans never leaves his supportive side, so to speak?
Never.
Faith Evans ended up with Stevie J.
Yeah, ain't that something? Yep.
To a level, I have always questioned if Faith Evans knew more about that night at the Peterson than she's ever alluded to.
Me too. Me too. She knows more than what she's led on to believe. She knows.
And I'll even be willing to take a step further and say that I would not be the least bit surprised if potential father-in-law Quincy Jones knew a little bit more about what was about to go down with the son-in-law he never wanted. I'm going to just leave that there.
I'm going to leave it too, because Quincy went to his grave with a lot of secrets.
No question. And Kadada Jones, I'm sorry, only 6 months removed from Tupac's murder.
Yeah.
Partying.
Yeah.
Partying at the Peterson.
It's going to come.
Around Puffy. Come on, bro.
It's going to come out, dude.
I hope so. I want justice for this man. But in closing on this topic, I just want to say there's not many artists. Guys like Michael Jackson, guys like the Beatles, the Stones.
Yeah.
Guys like maybe Marvin Gaye even.
Yeah.
there's only a few artists in every generation that are able to bring everybody in, regardless of sexual preference,
Mm-hmm.
race, etc.
Yeah.
This man right here, whether he was your favorite or somewhere in the middle or whatever the case may be, this was one of the guys that had that kind of staying power.
With Tupac, he's one of the guys who I don't really categorize him because he's kind of like how Rakim is.
In some ways, I tend to agree.
Yeah, I don't rank him because he's one of those guys who transcended the art. He was a great rapper. I'm not going. I mean, he can write his ass off. The guy was I would call him more of a poet. The guy can write his ass off. But it's the stuff. I mean, other than the stuff that got him in trouble, his lyricism when he really got down to like Brenda's Got a Baby and stuff like that, his lyricism in songs like that, the feel good stuff, it hits you and it makes you say, "Damn." You know, that's why when they say the greatest rapper, I'm not gonna call him the GOAT.
No,
but I will say he is one of the GOATs. I put him up there like Rakim. I put Rakim up there where I said I don't even rank him. Same with Tupac. I put him up there like he has his own category.
I don't think you can really rank a Rakim because in so many metrics, Rakim is the god MC.
Right. And
so I don't really think.
Yeah.
There's certain guys that are above being ranked, and Rakim is in that lane.
It's just how I feel about Tupac. Because Tupac, like you got guys who changed the landscape, and Tupac changed. I mean, he kind of defined West Coast. You had the West Coast doing their thing, and NWA, Ice Cube. Yeah, but when you think of West Coast, you think Tupac.
And that doesn't sit well with a lot of guys that were already on the West Coast, whether it be Snoop. I got news for you. Snoop's an informant and a very jealous person.
Very, very much so.
You know, every time I hear him talk about Tupac, like my hairs go up and my skin starts to itch.
Yeah, I feel the same way, man.
You know, because nobody's going to tell me that a guy that still was very involved in the streets on that level couldn't have called off the dogs, so to speak, to make sure that Tupac was all right.
Right.
Because he paints it as one way. Oh, this guy was so angry at me and da da da. I was like, dog, you were angry at him too. Let's call a spade a spade.
Exactly.
And one thing about Snoop, it's kind of ironic how he ultimately buys Death Row Records. He had so much negative shit to say about Suge Knight, but at the end of the day,
yeah,
not a lot of people were standing by Snoop Dogg during that double murder, or rather the murder trial.
Right.
With I think Philip Waldemarian was the victim's name.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got on that. So much more to unpack. This is never going anywhere. But
that's
rest in peace.
That's why we need to have
Tupac
another.
Shakur.
Yeah. We need to do a hip hop show, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But rest in peace, Tupac. Your legacy will always be intact, never forgotten. And I do hope for your remaining family members that there is justice attached to this, as the same that goes for the family of Christopher Wallace, because as we all know, Valletta Wallace died less than a year ago, and she vowed that her remaining family members would see this through. So I do hope so.
Yeah.
I hope that these two young men didn't die in vain completely. That's all I can say.
And my closing on that is like Miss Wallace, she called out Diddy.
Damn right she did.
She called him out. And she knew something. She called him out. And,
she basically said that her kid sold his soul for about 15 to 25K to Diddy.
Yeah.
You know, young man like that never saw money like that before.
Right. Yeah. So I say rest in peace, Tupac. Rest in peace, Biggie. Let me go camera too. Shoot. Rest in peace, Tupac. Rest in peace, Biggie. Rest in peace, Valletta Wallace, man. Yeah, Tupac. I mean, hey, I got mad love for him.
Yeah, man. It was a tough one that day, man.
Yeah, it was.
15-year-old me was crying on my way to Miami. I will say.
I ain't gonna tell you how old I'm stuttering. I don't want to tell you how old I was, so we're gonna leave it at that.
All right, we're
I already had kids at the time. I put it that way. They were teenagers.
Gonna move it along from baseball for a second. Yankees and Mets both getting swept over the weekend, and Rafael Devers is a Giant. We'll start with the Mets. Tampa Bay Rays really showing some guts in Queens. You know, coming into the series, Mets best team in the National League.
Yeah.
The Rays are basically just trying to stay above the water and stay within the wild card race. Now they find themselves, I believe, only 2.5 games behind the Yankees.
Right. You know what? And you know the Rays have always been a thorn in our feet, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
And
man.
you know, one thing I respect about the Rays, they've always built a team being cheap, you know, and no team in the American League East scares me. Not really in the American League, but Tampa Bay is a team that I hate. I don't hate them as in rivalry. They're the team that I hate that's there because they always give us shit.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of familiarity. I mean, even going back to the Yankees' record-setting 1998 season, the Tampa Bay Rays, in their infancy, split with the New York Yankees. Arguably the greatest Yankees team. You put them up there with probably the 27 Yankees.
27 Yankees, yeah.
You know, and the Rays split with them, and that was an expansion team. So, you know, Kevin Cash, who is usually in the mix for Manager of the Year, I think he should be this year as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a team that lost their best baseball player, Wander Franco, who's on trial in the Dominican Republic.
Yep.
They have always had to adjust losing potential superstars because they couldn't afford to pay them.
Yep, pitchers.
But it's a culture thing. As the Mets go, similarly to how the Yankees go, I'm not going to take an awful lot from this because prior to this series going in, you had 4 different guys on the New York Mets that had ERAs below 3, which at this juncture of the year is nothing short of phenomenal.
Right.
Yankees get beat first 2 games by a run. Yesterday get shut out. The reason the Yankees lost their series is because their bats, going back to the final game in Kansas City, have really went to sleep. This is the 4th consecutive game where the Yankees have failed to score more than 2 runs.
Yeah, that's true. It's like we went 1-2-0. Like,
well, I'll take that back. They did score 3 runs a couple nights ago. The point is that the Yankees are struggling offensively all at one time. It happens like that sometimes.
And you know, and the thing about it, our pitching is doing pretty good. I mean,
I can't complain.
Yeah, you lose 2-0 and 2-1 and 3-2. Pitching did pretty good. The bats just weren't there. You know.
But you know, they had the quick flight back to New York, and now they host the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, another team that they should beat. You know, we just seen Rafael Devers get traded. Going to hit on that in a moment. But is this the last time that we see Mike Trout in an Angels uniform? Because you gotta think that a team like the Philadelphia Phillies, who are on the heels of the New York Mets, and with the ties to that area, you know, being a player from Toms River, New Jersey, you gotta think.
Yeah.
You gotta think that they're gonna be in on him, and maybe a consolation prize could potentially be somebody from the Baltimore Orioles who are out of the race.
I always felt Anaheim should have done right by Trout. I mean, I know Trout was loyal and all that, but come on, man, you guys gotta trade him to a winner, man. This guy, he's put in work, man. And he's been loyal. He doesn't complain. He's like, this is where I am. Give that man a chance to win.
Yeah, he was there before Ohtani. He was there after Ohtani.
Yeah.
Ohtani leaves and immediately wins the World Series.
Yeah. You know, whatever you got to do, because you're not going anywhere.
No.
Trade him somewhere. Be like, where you want to go, man? And make the deal. I mean, if you can do it, but make the deal.
My personal opinion is that team will ultimately be the Philadelphia Phillies. It just makes too much damn sense.
Yeah. You know, get him out the division. I mean, get him out the league. Put him over there in the NL. Let him do his thing.
He'll do some damage.
Hitting
in a lineup with the likes of Kyle Schwarber as well as Bryce Harper.
Harper, oh my goodness.
One of my good friends out in Massachusetts, Corey Haddock, has forever been very critical.
You mean Mr. Boston?
John Henry.
Is that Boston, Mr. Boston Red Sox? Is that?
Oh, that's Rids, but they hang out.
I just want to say that.
Yeah, Rids hasn't really. I haven't seen anything from Rids on social media about the Red Sox, but his buddy Corey,
Okay.
Two fans that I legitimately respect. They know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Corey said yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
he said John Henry does not care about the Red Sox. And this trade is going to go down as another terrible one with the likes of the Mookie Betts deal.
When I saw that trade, I was like, I thought it was a potential. I was like, I saw it go across the tick on ESPN. I was like, oh, they're thinking about trading. Then it popped up on my phone. I was like, wait a minute. What are you guys doing? I was like, it's the Red Sox.
On the exterior, it looks like a cash dump, which it is.
Yeah.
But I also believe that to a level, they're punishing Rafael Devers because in the beginning of the year, when they talked to him about no longer playing third, he put up quite a fight about it.
Yeah, he didn't want a position change. Yeah.
Yeah, because with the addition of Alex Bregman, who is a better defensive third baseman, then they talked to him about potentially playing first.
Yeah. Yeah.
He gave them a lot of shit about that too. Tristan Casas gets hurt. They go out and get a veteran and Anthony Rizzo, who's basically on his own last leg.
Yeah.
And,
leg?
and the beat goes on about how John Henry continues to give Alex Cora terrible lemons that he has to somehow make lemonade out of.
Yeah, I'm not mad. I'm glad he's doing that because I can't stand. And if John Henry's going to put a freaking wrench in the problem, so be it. But as a baseball guy, I think it's messed up. You got a good man. Crow's a damn good manager. But
that's the frustration if you're a Boston fan because it seems like John Henry has become oppositional to Red Sox success.
James Dolan.
And I said it to Corey on socials. I said, I don't know who's worse, John Henry or James Dolan. I'll probably go with James Dolan because at least they won under John Henry.
Yeah, Dolan's been a dummy longer,
But, this eliminates a true Yankee killer and especially a Yankee killer against the healing Garrett Cole, who's going to be coming off Tommy John surgery and hopefully rejoining the team sometime in the middle of next summer.
Yeah.
But, it's not so much that I'm mad that he's gone and all this other stuff, but for the sake of the rivalry, I mean, you're sending a really bad message. You just took 5 out of 6 in the matter of 10 days.
And you just,
against the first place New York Yankees who have World Series aspirations and your most hated rival. You take 5 out of 6 in the better part of a week and a half, whatever. And then you go trade arguably your best offensive player.
You hit it, yeah.
What is the message you're sending your fan base?
Sent your baseman. I call them basemen. The guys that they get it done. You sent your baseman to the West Coast. Like, what are you thinking about? I mean, like you sitting in you want to get him out of the American League. You want to dump a salary, but you just got rid of a bat.
And the thing is, years ago, a trade like this would not happen because years ago, the National League did not have the DH.
Right.
But a guy like Devers joining a Giants team that is on the heels of the Los Angeles Dodgers right now.
Right behind them, right on their heels.
This is a huge get. A huge get for the Giants. And I think it certifies that they're going to be in the mix for a World Series championship for the remainder of the year. In the National League, it's the Mets, it's the Dodgers, it's the Giants. You got to consider the Padres to be dangerous.
Yeah.
You got to consider the Phillies to be dangerous.
Yep.
And if the Arizona Diamondbacks could ever figure it out with that pitching staff they have, but Corbin Burns being injured, that hurts.
Right.
But I still think something tells me the Mets are going to find their way into the NLCS. But I'm not sure if they're playing the Dodgers now. This move really bolsters the Giants roster. Huge.
Yeah. Off topic. How about the Rockies putting a whooping on the Braves, man?
Well, that's another team the Braves, that's another team that should probably be sellers at the deadline. I mean, this is a team that started 0-7.
Yeah. They can't get out the hole.
Too many things at one time. Ronald Acuna Jr., one of the game's greatest talents, comes back. Spencer Strider comes back. Chris Sale coming off a Cy Young award-winning season. But this is the time of the year where you got to start looking at your roster, looking at your contracts, and being like, okay, who can we offload to get some talent younger coming in? Because I got to say Chris Sale top
you
of the
got it.
list is a guy that's probably going to get dealt.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, it's not the All-Star break yet, and it's good. Go ahead and do whatever fire sale you're gonna do. Bring in new players, and then you got the whole second half of the season. I mean, hey, we've seen teams make deals, and all of a sudden, remember
And I
Philly a
don't
few.
think the Braves are necessarily going to be in it for this year, but
Oh no. I mean, like, just go ahead and see what you got, because now you can evaluate your team.
yeah, they have the
Shit.
kind of roster
Yeah,
that you fix a few things. They could be back literally next year.
right. I mean, look at Philly
And
a couple of years ago. First half of the season, they were dead in the water. Next season, second half, you're in the World Series.
now, Brian Cashman,
You know?
do what you got to do to bring in Chris Sale if you could.
Bring him in. That's
I
a
mean, can
hard
you
right
imagine next year, let's say hypothetically, if we trade for Sale, you have Carlos
there.
Soto,
Oh,
Garrett Cole, Max Fried, and Chris Sale?
it's Chris Sale. Lord have mercy.
I
You
have
got the
shades of
bats.
yeah.
Whew.
All right, NBA. This is a little wacky. Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic for 4 picks. Listen, I liken his skill set similarly to a guy like OG Anunoby, one of the better wing players in the
Yeah.
league. I like him, but for 4 picks is pretty wacky.
Dude. When I saw that, I was like,
And this is the thing that's a real head scratcher. I
yeah,
understand that Anthony Davis is a former NBA champion, one of the better big men in the league.
yeah.
He was part of the Luka trade, but they only got 1 pick for Luka. Is that a show of the ineptitude of Nico? Is this just a show that the NBA is really hard to figure out what value is? Because half the time when I look at what warrants these trades, or is it that people just don't consider first-round picks a slam dunk anymore like they did years ago?
I think it's a little of all, because I can't figure out why we gave up, what, 4 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges?
5.
5? That's a lot, man. That's a
Damn
lot.
right, it's a lot.
You know, and I think,
Especially in the division.
right. And then you look at OKC. They drafted Chet Holmgren. I say Chet Holmgren is an average player at best. You got a 7-footer who can't play in the paint. You know, he can't defend in the paint. He can shoot and all, but you can push him around. So I think first round picks are not as valued as they used to be. And I think teams are really reaching now. Also, they want to try to win so bad they're reaching. I'm like, dude. I mean, 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges. For 5 first-round picks.
It's pretty wacky when you look at it. These are 2 playoff teams this past year. Orlando Magic, in my opinion, especially with Jason Tatum not going to be able to play next year, barring the Miami Heat scooping Kevin Durant, even if they do scoop Kevin Durant, I think the Orlando Magic are on the fringe of being a top 5 team in the East.
Yeah.
I think it's Indiana, Cleveland, the Knicks, and then it's a conversation after that, because Boston will take a step back with the departure, not the departure, but the injury to Tatum. And there's been rumors that we could potentially bring in Al Horford.
I hear he's retiring.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Because I know he has a good relationship with Karl Anthony Towns. That would be an interesting situation to have Al Horford as your backup.
Oh, man, yeah.
I would be very pleased with that if it did come to fruition. But even with all the fuckery with figuring out who the hell's going to coach the Knicks, I still like our chances to win the Atlantic Division next year because of the fact that Tatum's not around.
Okay, I just looked it up. He's not retiring, but he's thinking about leaving to go. Might possibly go to another team.
I think the Knicks is something that could happen.
Yeah.
He has a very strong friendship with Karl Anthony Towns. But Desmond Bane, how do you think he takes the Magic to the next level? I mean, he's a guy that brings a great amount of energy. He's averaging just under 20 a game, and he's I believe he's in between 6 and 7 assists a game and 6 and 7 boards a game. He's a complete player right now that's entering his prime.
I think he'll be just like OG. I think he'll score, he'll get rebounds, he'll get assists. I think he pushes the Magic a little bit further up.
Yeah, because you've got Ranchero and you've got Wagner over there.
Right, yeah. So
this Magic team is gonna be dangerous next year.
They're gonna be tough. They were tough this year, and they won. So hey, look out.
All right, NBA Finals Game 5 in OKC. Idris Salam, what's your opinion for tonight's game?
I think OKC finds their groove tonight. I think they run Indiana off the court. I'm not going to say 20 points. I think they'll win by 10 tonight. Because they haven't really played. They played one good game. OKC ball. I think that was game 2 when they won at home. I think they'll come back home this time and run Indiana off the court.
Well, coming into the series, I predicted OKC in 6, so obviously my prediction cannot happen unless if OKC wins tonight.
I got him in
and
6,
ultimately wins Game 6. So I'm gonna go OKC 123, Indiana 115.
I'm gonna go 121, 109.
All right, so we both have OKC taking a commanding 3-2 lead and being one game away from their first championship in that city. Of course, people may not remember, but way before my time, the Seattle Sonics, the former Seattle Sonics, who ultimately became Thunder, did win an NBA championship.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was 14 years old when the Seattle Supersonics. I was 13 or 14, I can't remember, but I remember them beating the Washington Bullets at the time, because Washington won the championship the year before against Seattle. Seattle came back the next year and won it. Dennis Johnson, Jack Sikma, and the whole crew. Boom. I'm that old, y'all.
Now, let me ask you a question. That Washington team, was Earl Monroe on that team?
No. Wes Unseld.
Wes Unseld was there. Jesus.
He was there. Wes Unseld, yeah.
Jesus.
It was one of his final years, though. Wes Unseld. I forgot. I can't remember the whole team, but I remember Wes Unseld.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I'm not old, man.
That's crazy. Yeah, my best memories of the Supersonics were the Peyton and Kemp days. And when I look back at that 90s, they had a lot of missed opportunities. Between 94 losing to Mutombo and LaFonso Ellis's Denver Nuggets, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was also on that team.
Yep.
Oddly enough, Gary Payton came out years later and said that even up 2-0, he had an ominous feeling that they weren't going to win that series, which is really crazy.
Yeah.
They had that epic Western Conference Finals against the Suns the year prior. They lost in 7 to the Suns.
Yeah.
And just other failures where you're like, damn, how did those guys not win a chip? And they also had Detlef Schrempf. They had LaFonso Ellis. They were a damn good team.
Yeah, they were good. They were
had
good.
Not LaFonso. They had Dale Ellis.
Dale Ellis, yeah.
LaFonso was with Denver.
Denver, yeah. The Fonz.
Yeah. Notre Dame product.
Yep.
Dicker Phelps.
You had to get that one in.
That
you had to get that one in.
Of course I did. You know, Notre Dame is known as a women's basketball university and a football powerhouse, but they're not exactly known for men's basketball being terrific. So if there's ever any time that I could be like, hey, Notre Dame men's basketball, I mean, the success is few and far between in the newer era basketball. We had yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a while.
You got to be loyal though. What else, Idris? What else is on your mind before we scoot out of here?
Oh, let's see. We got 12 minutes. Let's talk about. I had something when you was talking about Tupac, but I got into Tupac so much I forgot. Well, I kind of want, and I know I hark on the WNBA, but this time I'm kind of taking another turn with it. What's up, Shed? I'm taking a turn with Unrivaled. I think Unrivaled is a good league, 3-on-3. However, I think it should be half court. I mean, I know the court is shorter, but I think it should be half court, like 3-on-3, because it's 3-on-3 and going back and forth it should be half court. And I think they should, because I had saw where Breonna Stewart was saying they created the league so the women players wouldn't have to go overseas to make money. And I'm like, well, if that's the case, instead of creating Unrivaled, expand the WNBA, more games, give more games, and more incentive. But the thing with the WNBA, we've seen now with Caitlin Clark, and this is why I say Caitlin Clark is the cash cow. When she didn't play, the WNBA ratings went down 55%. At first, I thought it was a mean someone just putting that up there to be like, yeah, Caitlin Clark. But I checked it and it was accurate. The ratings went down 55% when Caitlin Clark was out.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Similar to the effect that Michael Jordan, not even as bad, because when
Right.
Jordan left in '94, they still had star power in that league.
Right. So that's why I say they need to promote this game. If they just need to put this girl, and everyone knows I'm a Caitlin Clark fan, but I'm not saying this because I'm a Caitlin Clark fan. But this is your face of the league. We see that now. Y'all need to be like, this is the face. You got Brianna Stewart, what's her name? Paige coming from UConn. She's balling out. They need to push these players instead. And I'm an OG, but you got to stop pushing the old players, Brittany Griner and all. Push these new players because these are the ones who are actually bringing in the ratings.
So, in other words, you're saying that Hulk Hogan's running the WNBA?
Yeah, yeah, man. Gotta get him out of there, man.
That doesn't work for me, brother. All right. Ryan Shedd, he said, don't forget about deadlift strength. That dude looked like Guile from Street Fighter 2.
Didn't he?
Hell of a ball player. And a lot of people forget this. He actually started with the Indiana Pacers.
Sure did. Yup.
The first year that they locked horns with the New York Knicks, which was the 93 season, Indiana was a very tough 8 seed. They took the Knicks to 4 games. It wasn't an easy series for the Knicks. Detlef was on that team. I believe he was in the mix for 6th Man of the Year. Then he signed the contract with Seattle, joining the Rain Man and the Glove.
Yeah. Yup. Listen,
The Rain Man and the Glove. Damn, that was a nasty-ass combo.
Did you see the guys? Okay. Did you see the guys been on injuries to miss a first? Yeah.
Yeah, man. A lot of money was made there, Shed.
I follow WNBA. I talk a lot of trash, but I follow it. And from what I've seen, I think it was the game they lost against. I think the comeback game when they lost against Clark or without Clark. How she was wide open and the players were not passing her the ball. They gave it to Cardosa. They passed it around, but she was like, and they were just ignoring her. And I think this is just me. I think the players are getting a little tired of it because there's a lot of stuff coming out. And I think she even came out with a video saying why people calling what she doing is me bounds, because obviously she's reading posts and stuff like that.
Oh,
well, that's what it is. I mean, if you're a 4 and you're playing in the paint, your shooting average should not be 31%. And I'm saying this to Angel Reese fan. I was once a fan. If you're playing in the paint, I don't know a guy playing in the paint today, male or female, who played in the paint, who had the ball as much as Angel Reese has, whose shooting is 31%. I don't know. Chris Dudley, as bad as he was, he didn't shoot that bad.
Shed, I got a question for you, bro. With the NFL season not far away, and with your San Francisco 49ers trying to get another run or two in after an injury-riddled season, who out of your star power guys do you think is going to have a big bust-out year, comeback kind of year? Or do you think it could be somebody that's maybe a little under the radar, like an Isaac Garendo or somebody? I'm curious what you think about the trajectory, so to speak, with your 49ers. Of course, the Los Angeles Rams are going to be a Super Bowl contender, as they were ever so close to upsetting the Philadelphia Eagles in that snow game. The Arizona Cardinals are a potential team that could be improving and going north to the playoffs. I know that Marvin Harrison Jr. is one of those guys that a lot of people believe could potentially be a bust-out candidate similar to Malik Neighbors last year. So what are your thoughts, Shed? I'll give you a minute or two to respond if you're able to. I'll say this. I think the 49ers are going to do a better, more responsible job. What's up, Chanel? A better, more responsible job of sharing the ball with CMC and Garendo. I believe that they're going to try to do their due diligence to make sure that CMC is able to be there when it counts most, which is the final month of the season. And Brock Purdy has been the victim in some cases of people saying that he's just a fortuitous person because of what he has around him. I think that's a crock of shit. I think that Brock Purdy is the real deal. I know that our good friend Mike Zappi does not share that sentiment, and that's okay. But I think Brock Purdy's going to have a huge year. But I think for the 49ers to get to the next level and get back to their Super Bowl aspirations, you're going to need a healthy CMC. And also, I wasn't a fan of them. That's the guy. He just said it. Jawan Jennings
One Jennings.
should run it back being a number. Yeah, I'm with him on that.
Yeah.
Should be better, but he's slower than he was 2 years ago. Yeah, that's
Right.
reasonable. He's lower extremities is no game.
Yeah.
Ayuk will be back, but won't be 100 for a minute. Bosa should. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Um, yeah, Shed. Jawan Jennings definitely deserving of being that number one for the 49ers depth chart. With the departure of Debo Samuel, who's going to be playing opposite of Terry McLaurin in Washington, this is an ideal opportunity for Jennings. And I'm also going to go as far as saying that the often banged up George Kittle is going to have a big season. I think it's going to lead to top 3, top 4 fantasy value because he's the kind of tight end that when other things are not working, Purdy is always going to be looking for 85 to make stuff happen. And I do believe that Kittle has, not that he had a poor year last year, but I think he's going to have a little bit more. And I also think the old man, Travis Kelce, in potentially his final season for the Chiefs, is going to have a huge year. And, of course, you got newer tight ends. Brock Bowers is a friggin' animal.
Yes.
And now you got Tyler
him.
Warren and Colston Loveland coming out of college, playing for the Colts and Bears, respectively. I think those two are going to have monster years.
Daniel Jones, baby, Indiana Scopes. I'm sorry, dude. I know he didn't do good for our team, Daniel Jones, but I'm a fan of that kid, dude. I love Daniel Jones.
No, I hear you, Chad. I just think that this particular year, Kittle's really going to eat.
I think so, too.
Because I think with, like I said, the departure of Debo and Ayuk being all banged up, and I can't believe they paid Ayuk. I'm still not a fan of that.
I can't believe that.
But Jawan Jennings definitely showing his worth as a viable number one option.
Yeah.
So football is not far away, and it's going to be interesting. Of course, Run CMC was the cover man last year, had that very poor injury, terrible injury in the Buffalo game primetime. Saquon Barkley now on the cover. So that is something. I tell you, man, I never want any of my favorite ball players on the cover because I get worried about that crap.
And the thing about it, our Giants have sucked for a long time. We don't need we don't need nobody to be on.
I mean, bro, who was the last Giant on the cover of Madden was Odell Beckham Jr. And if my memory serves me right, he got hurt that year.
He got hurt.
Hasn't been right since.
Lee Jackson Dart alone. He does not need to be on any covers. That's our future.
The only cover that he needs to be on is the cover of the clipboard or the Microsoft tablet and start learning, young man.
Hey, listen, Richie and anyone watch, any Giants fan, I need you guys to go on YouTube and watch the interview with Darius Slayton. And he's talking about this season.
Oh, he's thrilled.
He is going to have you in tears, laughing. I love Darius Slayton. He's so smooth. He was talking about Wan'Dale Robinson. He seemed like he was naming it. He said, "Yeah, we should do good this year. We got Malik Neighbors. We got Jalen. We got." He says, "Me. We got Wan'Dale with them little bitty legs." He said, "He said I don't know what Wan'Dale did. I think Wan'Dale's been eating people. He done bulked up." Dude, if you want to laugh, if you want a laugh and a real good interview, go on to the Giants thing and watch Darius Slayton. He's gonna have you. I had to turn. He's gonna have you in tears. And he said everything like so smooth, like he's just talking. Like, yeah, I think he's eating people, man.
My God, one thing I gotta say though, the NFC East this year's difficulty of schedule is just brutal.
It is.
I'll be thrilled if we win 7 games, but the thing is, I just want to see gradual improvement. If I see my team competing every week, which I do, because when I look at this roster, I'm like, okay, I like what I'm seeing, particularly on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see if half of the talk that Russell Wilson's doing is going to come to fruition.
And you know what? I like what we got. It's like when Joe
But
Judge.
my goodness, it's a brutal schedule.
Yeah, it's like when Joe Judge's first season. We didn't do that. We won, what, 6 games that year? But that
Oddly
first,
enough, it was almost good enough to win that terrible division.
right? And see, that first season of Joe Judge, our team had some fight. Yes, we only won 6 games, but the next season, we know what happened. This year, I want to see us have fight. I want to see us fight like that defense did the first half of last year. I need to see the team, even if we lose 7-0. I want to see us fight to the very end.
That's
I don't want to
one
see
of the
us quit.
reasons why I have optimism going into this year, because of the fact that they were in so many games last year, but Daniel Jones was just that friggin' bad.
I hate talking bad about him, but it's true. he couldn't get it done. He just couldn't get it done. You know. Hey, you're right, Shed. And you know something? I'm glad Shed mentioned Jameis Winston. Darius Slayton said something about Jameis Winston in the interview in the thing. Just watch it. You're dying.
Shed, looking for some of that smoke amongst other journeyman quarterbacks, because I recently saw a video where an Eagles fan was giving Shed more credit than Nick Foles, saying that they don't get there without him. So maybe Shed is being a little bitter about the way that he's not remembered.
It's okay,
Philly
Shed,
sports,
man.
which
You did get a ring out of it, man.
he did get a ring. And I thought he's done a serviceable job of carrying Patrick Mahomes' duffel bags, things of that nature,
You're doing a great
babysitting,
job.
whatever it takes. Not quite the heroism of Henny Boo Boo, because after all, anything is possible.
Right.
All right. Until next time, he is Idris. I am Richie. Please make it a point to like and subscribe to the channel if you already have not. Richie X Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. Make it a point to check out the Casual Convo Show every Wednesday night from 8 to 10. You can see this guy, Mr. Idris, along with the crew, as well as the beautiful Miss Coco. Check out Johnny Nash, the Sports Corner, as well as... Shed's cracking me up, dog.
I know that's what I'm talking about.
I'm trying to keep a straight face over here. Check out Johnny Nash, the Sports Corner, as well as the Basement Show. They do it all over there. And I'm really stoked about football being on the horizon. I'm really stoked about the Yankees getting a couple of more healthy players on this roster, notably Luis Gil, as well as Giancarlo Stanton. Both guys are going to be needed for the second half run, and I really hope that the Yankees have the audacity to make the trade with the Atlanta Braves. Go bring in Chris Sale.
Atlanta, do the right thing.
Because I'd hate to see him land in Detroit or Houston. You know what I'm saying? I don't want him.
Detroit. I don't want to see him in Detroit.
Hell no. And
Come
fuck
to the
you,
Yankees.
AJ Hinch. Fuck you, AJ Hinch.
All day.
Great manager. But if you revisit the first episode, you'll understand why. Spotify, The Jordan Patrick Show, the infancy of this stuff here.
Do the right thing, Brian Cashman.
He won't want to go. He won't be the first guy that hated the Yanks and came over them. I mean, we'll see. Did you ever envision yourself playing for the Chiefs? I mean, sometimes you just got to think outside the box, Chetty.
Hey.
Still followed his coach.
Oh, man.
All right.
What a Monday.
I'm having fun with Shed, man. We got to get him back on the show.
We got to get back on the show. About 5 comments on, I said, Shed need to get back on the show.
He's definitely, we're having some fun here. But announcements to come for our next show. We definitely, I talked to Zappy the other day. We're going to do our best to get out a trade deadline predictions show for MLB, as that's going to be big. And, of course, if anything drops with big news out of the NBA, mainly coming out of the Kevin Durant camp, we will be sure to get on, whether you see my face on an Instagram video or here on the actual show. But we'll definitely make sure to bring that out to you. And, just got to make the stars align for sure, Shed. Yeah, we'll get you back on. And, of course, football season getting closer. So, before you know it, we're going to be doing our divisional previews again. Some of my favorite time of the year in terms of doing shows.
Daniel Jones will be the quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts by week 7. Bank it.
Jackson Dart will start week 17 for the New York Giants.
I'll say 15.
Okay.
I'm being facetious.
And Jameis Winston will give the best pregame speeches of the season in any NFL season.
We only want wins.
Hola, gentlemen. Hey, my dukes. You are the reason why they do call it Puerto Rican time.
That's right.
Nah, she had some busy stuff going on. Watch the replay, Ma.
Yeah,
Love y'all.
We out.
Have a great day.